Hello. Some of you may be familiar with the abandoned church and graveyard on Inch Island. Now, I didn't go into these explorers, or I did do an investigation with any backstory at all. Couldn't find it at all. Thing is, sometimes when you're out and about, just happened to be one day I was down at the pier on the island with the dog. I met one of the locals, who actually is a local to this particular area. Now, Inch Island was an interest to me, although I was finding it very, very difficult to find any ghost stories or paranormal happenings on the island, apart from one, and that was a haunting in a house on the island. Didn't say which house, so I'm automatically sort of thinking, wonder is it the main big house on the island, which is called Inch House? And I look up the history of Inch House, haunted Inch House, absolutely nothing. And then a couple of months went by and I seen house for sale on Inch Island. And this house is a big house as well, but I couldn't find this house. And kind of fitted the bill, although hauntings could happen in a small house, but I had this kind of, in my mind, I'm thinking, I just have this feeling this might be it. Being all over the island, can't find this house that's for sale. And in the meantime, I forget about the story, show you this church. Now this church, I've actually got a backstory to this church. This was a Church of Ireland church, and I don't have dates of when it closed, but I do have the backstory of why it closed. The population of Church of Ireland people had gone so low that one Sunday, well, it didn't say one Sunday, this is according to the guy native to Ireland. One day, possibly Sunday, I think he might have said Sunday, the last service took place and there was 9 people in the church. After the service, the minister hung up his vestments in the little porch off to the side, which is demolished now, locked the door, and that was it. How did it get into this derelict state where there's no roof and there's nothing in it? Well, apparently, when the church was abandoned, it was fully intact. There was an organ in it. There was, church pews, the altar, and all that kind of thing. That was all there. The land and the church went to a local farmer, and I'm not 100% sure about how this all works, but if there's a roof on a building, you have to pay property tax or something like that. So the roof was taken off the building. That is the bummer about, the tax system in this country. And that what happens is a lot of historic buildings, if there's a roof on the building, it's classed as a building. If the roof is not there, it's not classed as a building. You don't have to pay tax on it or whatever. So the roof was removed, which left the church in a derelict state, which is actually a crying shame. Now, is there a story attached to this church or the churchyard? Well, actually, apparently there is. I didn't know this when I was doing these videos, and this is very interesting. Now, there's no smoke without fire, and I'll link this to my search for the house that had the haunting. This will all gel together, and it's kind of crazy. Now, the guy that I was talking to this guy for 3 hours down on the pier. And he was talking about paranormal experiences from way back and stuff like that. And I would have loved to interview the guy because I could listen to him for hours. But I told him what I'd done, and that's how the paranormal, the paranormal and the ghost stories started coming up. This guy was a great storyteller. Well, he asked me, he says, I told him I was down at this church. And he asked me, he says, did that never happen down there when you were down there? And I says, no, not really, no. I says, I did do a kind of a mini investigation. There's the way the church is now. But that church, was fully intact, but when the roof came off, that's what happened. But anyway, he asked me, did that never happen down there? And I says, no. Well, he says, there was an exorcism back years ago. I no dates, I should have flipping asked, but apparently he told me that there was an exorcism in a house across the road. I'm thinking, right. So I've only got one story of a haunting. I can't get to the bottom of it. Now he's telling me another one, which could be the same flipping one. He says, there's a house across the road, and a priest came in to exorcise the house, and he chased the devil out of the house. And he managed to get the devil out of the house, but he only could get him out as far as the graveyard. I'm thinking, right. So I go home and I look up. The house that I had in my head that went on the market. And I look at the video of the house. This house was put up for sale, right? It was put up for sale as a farmhouse. And do you know what, when you go to sell a house, you kind of neutralize. You want to attract all kinds of buyers. So your taste may not be somebody else's taste, so you kind of neutralize the house. Apart from sometimes, unless walls are too brightly coloured and that, but it seemed to be fine. But there was no pictures on the wall, apart from one, and that was a picture of a crucified Jesus. But I noticed in the video when he came in the door, the cameraman came in the door and done his walkabout, there was a big crucifix inside the door on the wall. I'm thinking, there's no other pictures in the house, but these are left there. I'm thinking, it's looking like that may be the house. And on the video, told me what the name of the house was. So I put it into Google Maps. Guess where the house is that was for sale? Across the road from the graveyard. The reason why I couldn't find it is because it's behind a big massive hedge. But I went up and down this road on Google Maps and actually found the house. Now, do I believe that a priest chased the devil into the graveyard? I'm very skeptical of that. But there is no smoke without fire. There was a report of a haunting in a house. Now, the other part of it is, he told me that he could only get the devil as far as the graveyard, right? Now, would that imply that he might think that the devil is banished into the graveyard to wander forevermore? I'm highly doubtful of anything like that. You know, if it was able to go into the house, you know, whatever this was, it's got free reign. It's not banished to the graveyard or anything like that. I didn't feel any way uncomfortable here, even at night. Other people may have this, may circulate this story and say that the devil is banished to this graveyard and is probably roaming around this graveyard, and some fear around it and that. I just don't. I'm highly doubt it that if there was a spirit, a demon, devil or whatever, banished out of a house, that it's going to be stuck in a grave. How does that work? You know, you have to sort of think of some things logically, even though the story isn't logical, and very often the paranormal isn't. But, you know, stories very often turn into something fearful. This area may or may not be classified as, a place of fear, a fear to go in. I highly doubt that, you know, and I will, if I get a chance, hopefully I will, to get back. It's only down the road. To get back and do a few more walk-arounds, possibly do a bit of an investigation for a couple of hours or whatever, and hopefully it will, if there is any fear around this abandoned church, abandoned graveyard, that it would ease people's fears. I don't, a lot of people, when people talk about the paranormal, they try to make it as scary as possible because that's what people want. I'm about sort of telling the truth, and I would rather ease somebody's fear than put fear into people. I want to do the opposite. Then, I could have made a clickbait video. I could have came down here, Devil's Graveyard, blah blah blah, and pretended I was scared, and pretend that that I'm running out and I'm feeling this and I'm feeling that. I'm not going to do that, and I wouldn't do that simply because there possibly is this story going around that this is maybe something to fear, this area and that. I want to do the opposite to it, but it's flipping strange. I went into that location completely blind. I didn't even know it was a Church of Ireland church. So I was able to get, more bits and pieces of information. But it was very interesting that tied into me looking for a house that had a haunting in it. And then the house that I thought may have the haunting in it is the house across the road from this graveyard. Now, I may be wrong, but the house beside the house that I was thinking of is a newer house. This has got a bit of history to it, and I'm thinking, there may be something to it. But I did go up and down the road on Google Maps. Now, what I tried to do with the story is reconstruct the story in my head. The priest comes into the house. and does this exorcism thing. And I'm picturing this devil or dark creature or whatever, and the priest chases him out of the house with a cross or whatever he's doing. The house isn't exactly right beside the church. There's a bit of, there's 50, 60, 70 yards. I'm reconstructing it in my head. So the priest banishes the demon out of the house. I'm thinking that's where it should sort of end. So I'm picturing now the story I'm told, that the priest chased the demon down the road, and he only could get him as far as the graveyard. So I'm picturing this priest running down the road 70 yards, chasing this demon or devil, and it just doesn't add up. I'm sort of thinking if the priest was casting this demon out of this house, that once it left the house, that was it. He wasn't going to go running down the road. Where's he going to run it to? So it's not adding up. And as far as I know, there's only one house that was exorcised on this island, this whole of Ireland, and that was the Cooning Ghost House. An exorcism in a house, apparently there was only one. Now, I could be completely wrong, but I cannot find any evidence that an exorcism took place in that particular house. Now, something went on. There's things adding up, and there's other things that are not adding up. And that's the thing with some of these stories. I'm not saying that the story that was told to me was a lie, but I presume that the guy who told me wasn't there, and he was told. And very often when a story is told from one person to another, especially when it comes to a paranormal event or a ghost story, people tend to sensationalize it. You can't trust. It's very hard to trust storytellers, because when it goes from one person to the other, it goes into the hands, or it goes into the head of somebody that's untrustworthy. Or it could go around, the pub where a lot of stories were told back in the day, and when you mix a bit of alcohol and a ghost story, when they start telling that ghost story, it's way blown out of proportion. But there's something to this story, and I want to get to the bottom of it, and I hope that I will, but there's a possibility I won't. But it's kind of weird that I was trying to find out the paranormal story and what house, because I heard, I've seen an article, I can't find it now, of a haunting on this island, in a house. And it could have been any house. It could have been a small house, a big house. But I was sort of drawn to one particular house, and that house happened to be put up for sale. And it's right close by, and it's just the pieces are adding up. So it'd be interesting if I can get any more from the guy I was talking to. The guy lives in the area. I give him my thoughts on the story, and I says it's highly unlikely that if this did happen, that it would be banished to the graveyard. A priest is not going to banish a demon or a devil to a graveyard and lock it there. It doesn't. Although people may say that that's the story, I don't believe that. I don't think that a priest would actually do that. You know, the guy at the same time says that's as far as he could get this devil away from this house, was the graveyard. Couldn't get him any further. But there again, it's still not adding up, because if the priest chased this devil down the road 70 or 80 yards and only got him as far as the cemetery, why didn't he chase him out of the cemetery? You see, I have to ask these questions. I have to. But it's interesting, you know. It'd be interesting if I got somebody else telling me the story, and what would the differences be. But at the same time, I think there's no smoke without fire. There was definitely something happened on this island in a house, and it looks like it might be this house. But I'm not going to mention the house. I'm not going to show it. I have pictures. I'm not going to show it because just in case I'm wrong. Just in case I'm wrong. But I've got this hunch that when a house is put up for sale, we are in a Catholic country, I understand, and people are religious and stuff like that. But if you're going to go to the effort of putting the house on the market and taking pictures off walls and stuff, why wouldn't you take the cross from inside the door that was hanging on the wall and the picture of the crucifix in another room? And was that room where the hauntings happened? You know, I could be wrong, but I think something is up, and it's getting exciting. You see, not everything happens on camera. Just happened to be down at the pier, let my dog have some exercise. I ended up in a 3-hour conversation, and it was very sort of interesting. And he would have, if I had asked him for an interview and telling these stories, it would have been absolutely fantastic. But I wasn't in the frame of mind, and I don't think I had the camera with me that day. So, yeah. You know, but even if I just had his voice and he didn't want to be on camera, his stories were absolutely fantastic. You know, I could have listened to him all day. But there you have it. There's the backstory to this church that I knew nothing about when I done these films. And it just happened to be that there was a ghost story attached to it. It's crazy, you know. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some recordings. I'm going to do environmental readings and stuff like that. May not be on camera. You know, it may not be on camera, but I will do environmental readings, temperature, electromagnetic field. Not that it makes any difference, but I'll do them anyway. And draw out a quick square map on a piece of paper and take note of the temperatures and that, and take the average temperature, and if the temperature drops lower than average, then there's something sort of interesting and stuff like that. Do some videoing, do some EVPs, some audio work and stuff like that. And see what happens, you know. I'm not expecting the devil or anything like that, but you know, might get something out of it. But you know, if I get nothing, that would be a brilliant job. Won't be entertaining, but it'll be, I can safely go to the guy and says, I've done all I can with this place and I'm getting nothing. There's nothing to worry about. And that would be, sometimes not getting paranormal activity actually helps a community because it lifts the fear factor that they might have. But I'm going to leave that for tonight and talk to you real soon.